Peace and Reunion Event, that.
Yes, more people here, and they're treating us just like.
And did you ever see as many pretty girls?
No, I never did. Did you hear that there pretty woman talking up there and bagging on the old soldiers? And I wanted to hug her.
Oh,
I couldn't get to her.
Why didn't you tell her to hold on that you wanted to have a word with her?
Well, next time I see her, I'll fix it all up.
All right.
I'm going to hunt her up too this evening.
She may be up here this evening.
Yeah, she'll be here. If your girl is gone, you won't get to see her.
No.
What are you going to do about it?
I'll hunt another one.
I don't think you'll find another as crazy as that one.
Well, I might improve on that. You don't know.
Fredericksburg, Virginia, December 1862. Chancellorsville, May 1863, 6 months later, in the same historic state. Two victories of major importance for Robert E. Lee and his Confederate hosts in the war between the states, the military high noon of the Confederacy. Through them, the Southern Army reached its peak morale. The spirit of the twice-defeated Federal Army fell to its lowest. After Chancellorsville, Lee determined to carry the war into Northern Territory. He knew the discouragement in Federal ranks, the pessimism among civilians in the North where the movement for peace at any price was growing. A successful Northern campaign would break the backbone of resistance. Using the protecting screen of the Blue Ridge Mountains to conceal his northern thrust, Lee moved his full army over the war-famous Shenandoah Valley Pike through Front Royal and Winchester, Virginia, crossing the Potomac at Shepherdstown into Maryland on June 23rd. Meanwhile, Lee's stealthy departure was discovered, and the Federal Army started north on the eastern side of the mountains to defend Washington and Baltimore, crossing the Potomac at Edwards Ferry on June 25th. The Confederate advance had reached Carlisle and York, Pennsylvania on June 28th, uncomfortably close to the state capital at Harrisburg, when Lee discovered the Federals had followed him and had reached the region around Frederick, Maryland. Forced to withdraw and protect his line of retreat, the Shenandoah Valley, Lee concentrated his troops at Gettysburg. The next day, the Federals started pressing in northward from Frederick, the Confederates eastward from the mountains. The rising tides of blue and gray were increasing in size and power, and then they met at Gettysburg. On this battlefield, in 3 bloody days, July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, Lee's dream was shattered. Gettysburg was the beginning of the end for the Confederacy. And 75 years later, in July 1938, these armies met again at Gettysburg, their ranks reduced from hundreds of thousands to 8,000 aged veterans. And once more, this picturesque Pennsylvania town resounded to the tramp of marching feet and the roll of martial drums as the veterans encamped at nearby Gettysburg National Military Park. Paying honor to the old soldiers, almost every type of modern Army equipment rolled through the streets of Gettysburg, offering stark contrast to the lumbering mortars and howitzers of 1863. Although in 1938 there were 8,000 veterans still living, only 1,818 were able to attend their last reunion, Union men outnumbering Confederates 3-1. More than 160,000 soldiers fought at Gettysburg, but only 65 who actually took part in the offensive returned for the reunion. The average age of all the veterans in camp in 1938 was 94, but they had lots of fun in boasting of their health and strength. One of the most interesting camera subjects was Mr. William H. Jackson, a volunteer in Stannard's Vermont Brigade. Soon after the war, he became the pioneer photographer of the then unknown Far West and was first to record the wondrous beauties of Yellowstone Park. During various Civil War campaigns, Mr. Jackson made now invaluable sketches of important battles and historic areas. And how the words did fly. These aged but talkative vet living stories of tempestuous maneuvers and sallies, probably much in the style of the Union General Hancock's account of Lee's costly attack on Cemetery Ridge. The colors of the different regiments were now advanced, waving defiance of the long line of battle flags presented by the enemy. The men pressed firmly under them. After a few minutes of desperate fighting, the enemy's troops were repulsed. The battle flags were ours and the victory won. And everybody was all ears when they told of events associated with monuments and areas now in Gettysburg National Military Park. Northern or Southern, every veteran renewed the memory of his leader at Gettysburg, whether General Lee or General Meade, whose statues are near the position from which they directed their armies. These statues are but a mile apart, across the fields lying between the Union and Confederate lines. And skyward monuments erected by various states to memorialize their soldiers who took part in the bloody struggle brought to mind troop movements such as Pickett's Charge or the attack by Law's Alabama Brigade. Actual spots where famous skirmishes and attacks took place were revisited. The slopes of Little Round Top in the distance, the massive boulders of Devil's Den, behind which Confederate sharpshooters harried and sniped at the Union troops stretched out on an opposite slope. Spangler's Spring is vividly remembered because it was one of the few sources of water for the troops, and its possession passed back and forth between the two armies. Once again, these soldiers of another day stood by an unforgettable stone wall, used as a Union breastworks in repulsing Confederate advances. Only a few Southerners crossed it. Nearby is the high water mark of the Confederacy, the point where the Southern lines began to fall back from their greatest advance to the eventual downfall of the Confederate States. Common feeling to veteran and visitor alike at the reunion was the sanctity of the National Cemetery, located on the wooded hill in the distance. Here is the Soldiers' National Monument, marking the spot from which President Lincoln delivered his Gettysburg Address of November 19, 1863. And thus was commemorated the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg and the final reunion of the blue and gray.
Major Sedlman, what is your opinion of General Robert E. Lee?
I regard him as the most stable military genius of the age in which he lived.
What is your opinion as to the hardest fought battle in the Civil War?
I regarded the Battle of the Wilderness and the Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse as the two hardest fought battles. It's difficult to say which of the two was the hardest fought battle.
In 1861, I enlisted in the War of the Rebellion at Warsaw in Benton County, Missouri, under Colonel O'Kane, then a captain. We went to Cold Camp, fought the Dutch, and cleaned them out completely. Lost only 7 of our men with more than 250 of the Dutch killed. No prisoners were taken on either side. From there, we went to Springfield, Missouri, where we had the Battle of Wilson Creek, where General Lyon was killed on the 10th of August. The bravest man I ever saw was General Land, after he was completely surrounded and pulled off his horse.
If you enjoyed
He
today's
picked
video
up
and
rocks
would like to
and
see more
fought with
content like
thousands
this,
of men
be
around
sure
him.
to take a shot at the like button, subscribe,
He struck
and ring that
Will
notification
Morgan
bell
in
to
the
stay up
face
to
with the
date
rock,
with all the
and
latest
John
BirdDogg
Morgan shot him
content.
with an old-fashioned
If
horse
you'd like to
pistol.
support the channel, for a
Killing.
limited time, there's exclusive Civil War Diaries
How old are you?
merchandise available in the
I'm
video
94.
link below.
94, pretty good age for a young man.
Dear Mr.
Yes. Now you ask me how old I am.
How old are you?
84.
84. You was in the
same war.
under the same general.
On the same general, General Price.
That's good. Fine old man, too. Good man.
Good man he was. Yes, he was. And we's there to stay.
We
didn't enlist for a month or a year, but we enlisted for the war.
As long as we lived, or as long as the war lasted.
That's right.
Having a good time here today?
Fine. We're having a good time.
Enjoying ourselves?
Enjoying ourselves very much. And had a good dinner,
Very
too.
good.
You're a pretty spry for a 90-year-old Civil War veteran.
I sure am.
Aren't you tired? Don't you want a drink?
But what?
Water,
Nothing
of
to
course.
I haven't drank water for 50 years. It rusts pipes, and it sure rusts your inside. The best thing to drink is beer, coffee, tea, a highball once in a while.
But the country's dry now, Mr. Draper.
They say it is, but is it?
Oh, but the country's dry now.
They say so, but is it?
The country's dry now.
They say it is, but is it?
What do you think of the new long dresses, Mr. Draper?
I like them short. The shorter the better. The knee is a joint, not an entertainment. Goodbye, girls. I gotta shake myself loose. Keep sober now.
Me and Nelson went to the Mexican War, joined with Lee and Grant under General Scott. And from there we came home, and then the war between the states fought on the Stonewall Jackson and Lee. And then, now Long Levy has taken a good glass of wine and a good smoke tobacco, and don't worry.
We are the last of the old bodyguards of our masters served through the war between the states. And we have been to all the reunions, and they have treated us just the same as any other soldier. I'm Marmaduke, Joe Shelby, bodyguard. Done everything they told me to do. And so one day, General Marmaduke told me to go and get some chickens. I told him I didn't know what's going on. He said, got his gun, looked like them red chaps on there. I told him, yes, sir, I'll go right now. You ought to know how old I am? I'll be 81 years old the first day in August. Dan Winter. Into the southern white man, my race would have been in the jungles of Africa today, ignorant in the wild beast. He brought me over here and made a human out of me.
In this rare film clip, we see the daring Southern horseman who had followed the hard-riding, hard-fighting Nathan Bedford Forrest, the untutored military genius dubbed a wizard of the saddle. With their deeply rooted experience of soldiering, many Civil War veterans displayed an eager curiosity in the latest military technology as America girded for a Second World War.
Maine. 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 Maine.
The army, the great mountain army, the absolute army, where those brave got to do.
We shall meet, but we shall miss him. There will be one vacant chair. We shall learn how to caress him when we break our evening prayer. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Sable night, close the day on her breast, onward sleep not away. Oh, thy rest.
Roll very slow. See what we're going to do? Yeah. Roll very slow. Head up. Go ahead. Keep rolling. You yes, but you can't go by the you understand? I don't want to stand with you.
A fast-fading echo of the marching feet of 61 is being heard in Springfield as 1,200 Civil War veterans celebrate their 66th annual reunion. Women folk help to guide those with whom the spirit is more willing than their faltering limbs.
Although their ranks are dwindling and the thin blue line grows smaller every year, there are still some left with young ideas.
Army of the Republic, grand in historic memory, but fading away in the numbers that march. GAR encampment at Madison, Wisconsin, and fewer than 200 of the boys in blue. There's Governor Phil LaFollette of Wisconsin. These Union veterans will join Confederate veterans in the 75th anniversary celebration of Gettysburg, the blue and the gray, next summer. But they protest against the Confederate flag. They still have pep and still can fight the Civil War.
Civil War veterans fight it over. Thinning ranks of old men parade with brave front. At Portland, do you remember when?
What do you think of the styles of the young women nowadays, Captain? All right.
What do you remember about things here right after the war?
After the war?
After the war between the states, what do you remember most?
Well,
things were hard?
Yes, it's hard. They come a fellow through here taking all the horses and everything else you had to plow.
Mm-hmm. Who did that, the Union Army?
Bunch of horse rogues.
Mm-hmm. Horse rogues?
Yeah, they just ride up to the farm until you fetch the horse to them.
Mm-hmm.
A man by the name of Larry Willis and his crew.
Mm-hmm. Where were they from?
They say the said to be in Kentucky. I don't know where they're from.
Kentucky, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know where they're from.
Mm-hmm. And how long did you do that?
Huh?
How long did you do that?
Farming work?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I done several years.
Mm-hmm.
And then they began to cut and slay and get all the big poplar timber out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
I got my 3 yoke cattle and went to logging.
Logging?
Logging.
Mm-hmm.
And I logged down here on what's called Stock Creek. I hope build that, all the lumber brothers hope build that railroad from Bristol to Big Stone Gap, little army road by. And Bailey and Neely Cecil worked down my 12 months. With 3 yoke cattle part of the time and 2 all the time, myself.
You've had a good life.
Yes, sir. Worked hard, waded the mud. Struck fellas down there that was working for. They just walk in the mud from Kentucky, Captain Banks. He just walked in and helped me lift a big log and get on. His boots were running full of mud and water. I was Jim Scott walking around with his gloves on, blowing his hand. And every check he gave, he went to protest. That's the way the word went up.
Tell me, General,
Hello.
do they work that hard anymore?
Huh?
Work that hard anymore?
Well, Lord, you ought to want to know. But the times are going to come that they wish you had work. If you're going to get there.
I was born on the 17th day of January, 1846. I go back as far as way along the early 50s. My first recollection of public living, and especially political living, as I may call it, was when I learned as a boy of 9 or 10 that my home was in the state of Virginia. I didn't know about states before that time. Then came up the great struggle when the Republican Party had become a power in the land. And when in the spring of 61, when news came that war was actually declared. In fact, it had been coming when South Carolina, as we heard, seceded from the Union. Well, wonder now what Mr. Lincoln will do when he is seated on the presidential chair. Well, there was a variety of feeling about it, even among our 75 or 100 young men, boys, at school. But right at once, when war was declared, about half of our pupils, young men over 18, quit school, joined companies of infantry, cavalry, and in their homes, in surrounding counties, and in that vicinity. I wanted to go too, but my father said, "Now, son, you're too young." I was just 15, just a little past. And if the war continues long enough, you may have an opportunity. Well, so I rested, and the war began, and I heard about it. And I heard that at the Battle of Williamsburg, some of my classmates fell in the battles there. Well, I grieved about that because they were boys that I'd been brought up with. They were a little older than I, but I felt sorry that they were killed. Then, in 62, although General Lee had still a pretty good army, he began to need more men, naturally. Although the big battles, or the largest battles, had not come yet. But my neighbors around there, some of them who were over 45, kinsmen of mine, some of them, began to just get up a company of cavalry. And I, a boy of 16 and a half years old, joined the cavalry company, which afterwards was attached and counted with others among the 24th Virginia Cavalry.
Now, for a long time then, from August 62 on until 64, great battles had been fought in there. We heard of the Battle of Gettysburg. And finally, our camp company was taken away from the Blackwater border, guarding that section of the country from the incursions of Federal soldiers who might cross the Blackwater River and the Huron and come over into Confederate territory. We were taken in the spring of 64, our regiment was, in the neighborhood of Petersburg. And while we were camped just north of Petersburg, General Grant began his invasion of that part of Virginia. We heard about it, and I remember very distinctly, one morning we heard that General Lee had crossed the James up north and was coming down the Turnpike Road in the direction of Petersburg, just near us. And the next morning, happening to look while I was on guard, across the James River, there we saw long lines of blue. The infantry of the Army and the United States flags on the other side of the James, coming down to beyond the mouth of the Appomattox River that flows into the James, in order to cross on the pontoon bridges and thus begin the invasion of that part of Virginia and in the city of Petersburg. Thus,
I was not with that part of the army. My regiment was moved up north of Virginia, out of Richmond, I mean. North of Richmond, and thus we guarded that city for several months while General Lee and General Grant were struggling there near Petersburg. While that was going on, there were some skirmishes and one, small battle I was in. I was not in any of the larger battles, probably fortunately, maybe unfortunately. Well, General Ewell commanded the General Lee's corps near Richmond. And I remember we were called up one day and took the Darbytown road, and some mile or two, I don't know, we never counted distances or time in those days. We turned off from the road, made a road, and went down a road through a wood. After a while, came to an opening, and there was a line of blue boys and with some artillery. And we charged them, and that's where I was struck the first and only time in my leg, which laid me up 2 months. I was sent home on furlough. Now, I want to bring in one or two little points there that might be of interest to some. We were around Richmond, my regiment was, all the time then, on doing little or nothing, while the war was still going on. And after a while, a Saturday evening, the first day of April, 1865, we were ordered, and by the way, in the meantime, about half of my regiment had lost their horses. The Confederate soldiers owned their own horses, and when they lost a horse, it was difficult at that stage to secure a substitute. Anyhow, I lost mine. I've forgotten just now how. I don't believe it was in battle, however, at that time. Now, orders came for a dismounted part, or demounted, I might say, of the regiment to fall in line and march. We stopped on the way and spent the night. That is Saturday night. The next day was a beautiful day, Sunday. We didn't know what was going on. We were within a mile of Richmond, and there was a turmoil there. And that day, as you all know, that day, the President Davis was attending his usual services at his church, St. Paul's Church. Right in the midst of the sermon, the front door opened, and a courier rushed in and went up to President Davis, handed him the paper. He opened it, and it was a dispatch from General Lee saying, "Mr. President, I am so heavily pressed by the enemy that I'm compelled to abandon Petersburg." Mr. Davis arose and left, and the congregation broke up, and in a few minutes almost, it was pandemonium then in Richmond. We marched out of Richmond early the next morning, on the 3rd, and started in a southeasterly direction. We didn't know which way nor where we were going, but afterwards it showed that we were attempting, under General Ewell's command, to come in contact with General Lee, somewhere down southwest of Petersburg. Well, the Federals under General Sheridan overtook us, our command of about 3,000, in Amelia County, Virginia, and after fighting several hours, General Ewell surrendered us, and thus I became a captive. I went to prison along with this command, and we landed in Point Lookout, Maryland, down here. Now, comes up the question of what we Southern soldiers fought for. My friends, as a boy of 16 and a half years old, I didn't think about any abolition of slavery. My mind wasn't developed enough to take in what the politicians had in mind, and hence there was no trouble as to the freedom of the slaves. The South did not fight for the preservation or extension of slavery. My friends, it was a great curse on this country that we had slavery, and I thank God that I did not bring up my boys and girls under a system of slavery under which I was brought under. What did you boys fight for then? Here's what a great many people do not know. That as a young man that way I couldn't understand it fully. But I look back now and see my part in it and saw what we struggled for. And that was for states' rights. For states' rights. And as many of you know, immediately after the war, the rights of the various states, well, especially in the South, were very much curtailed, if I may use that word. And since then, I have noticed, you let things come up that encroach on the ordinary states' rights, which we have preserved, and we find that the North, the boys that wore the blue, are with us in preservation of the states' rights.
his comrades all had experience. I don't know whether you ever heard of this experience. I was on picket duty. Now, if that ain't the truth, I'll tell you another one.
What did you do when you picked the chickens?
And a boy come along, and he wouldn't stop when I told him to, and I shot him. Next night, there was two fellas coming along on my hands and knees, and they wouldn't stop. And I shot them both of them. Then about 2 months afterwards, put on the same boat. You wouldn't believe it, it was three fellas coming along.
Shot
them all. Oh, no, hold on. Oh.
You got back the cat and put down the accessories.
No, worse than that. They shot me.
All right. Well, Top.
Yeah, go ahead.
Boys and girls, 62 years ago, my Corps Commander, John A. Logan, issued an order that this 30th of May should be used as a Memorial Day in honor of the soldiers that fought during the Civil War. And every year since that, we have been observing this day. And it's spread all over the country, the boys and the girls, the men and the women everywhere, are scattering flowers all over all the graves. It began this morning when the sun rose, and it spread all over the United States. So that there were millions of graves, the flags are flying, and the flowers are being distributed, and everybody is happy over the great war of the rebellion. That's all.
I told you to do that. Well, keep your feet down.
Talk that way to the end of war.
Well, what do you think I am?
I get it up.
I can't blame you, it's hard to guess.
I can tell what you want in my hand.
All right. You gotta pay for me.
That's all right, too.
If you enjoyed today's video and would like to see more content like this, be sure to take a shot at the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest BirdDogg content. And if you'd like to support the channel, for a limited time there's exclusive Civil War Diaries merchandise available in the video link below.